Welcome to the Lucky Orange Show, where we teach you how to unlock the potential of raw data and shape it into stories that grow your business faster. Let's get into today's conversation.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Lucky Orange Show. I'm your host, Sean McCarthy from the team here at Lucky Orange, and we're continuing our year-long dive into data, helping you make better use out of all that data that you're collecting. And we've gone through content marketing, we've talked about brand, we've gone a bunch of different angles. And today I'm excited to dive into something that I know personally very little about, which is the Amazon marketplace, the Amazon ecosystem. And I'm excited to bring in what I consider definitely an expert on this topic. And that's Maher from Cartology. Also has the Longer Game podcast, which we'll plug at some point. So Michael, welcome. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate you having me. A year commitment to data. That's a long time.
You know, I think what we're realizing is that it's never been easier to collect data. It's never been easy to plug and play stuff, free solutions, paid solutions, and it just sits there and you don't use it. And then you wonder why it's not working. Well, we're having these conversations this year to figure out the best way to make better use of our data. And I think today, part of our conversation will certainly tag into all of the data that you collect as an Amazon seller and all the data that exists in that ecosystem. And I think I want to start at what's a pretty high level, which would just be to say that Amazon seems to present a massive opportunity for brands. I don't think there's any question there.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear that not everybody crushes it. Not everybody succeeds. It's probably easy to get lost in that ecosystem. So where do you think brands are missing the mark most frequently with the swings that they're taking on Amazon?
Do you think it's a coincidence that the Amazon is also a jungle?
Sounds
I don't know,
terrifying.
But yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. Big opportunity. And most brands, I would say, think a couple things, and it's often related to ad spend, which just to double back, I agree there's never been more data. And saying data-driven is really sexy. What does that actually mean, though? Just in the same way that new tech can be really exciting. What's the purpose of utilizing this tech? Like, what's my end goal? And so I think a lot of times people have data overload. They don't know what to look at. And they need someone to say, all right, what are your goals and objectives? Here's the metrics that we should measure. Are you a consumables brand? Great. Let's look at your subscribe and save on Amazon. Like small things like that. But I think most brands on the Amazon side of things are thinking, I want my business to be profitable, which it will not be when you launch. Even in this big period of growth, it could potentially not be profitable. But you have to spend with intention, and a lot of people don't. So they spend into oblivion or spend without building what I call search equity, which we can get into, and they don't get the results. And then Amazon's a broken channel, which it's not, but kind of depends upon, your expertise going into it. And then again, how you're getting to that end result. But people think maybe they can spend a little bit on ads, or we don't really want to spend a lot of money on advertising. You have to. And it's not just because most agencies say spend, spend, spend. It's not that. It really is a function of how Amazon is set up. And if you look at, I've been in e-commerce for the past 15 years. I started as a seller before advertising was even a thing on Amazon. And as they rolled that out, it just continued to grow and became a great revenue generator from Amazon. But there's certainly different ad types, but just go to the first page of Amazon, search anything, count how many items say sponsored.
Yeah.
Half the page is paid placements. And if you're in a super competitive field, or really any field, knowing how Amazon shows up search results organically, it's based on sales history, sales velocity. Certainly location is a part of it too. They want you to have a good experience. You don't generate any sales velocity, you're not going to get on the first page organically. You have to do that via paid. And if you're not running paid in a super competitive category, you're going to miss out on additional velocity that everybody else is getting.
Yeah. You used a phrase, spending with intention. And I think about optimizing a website. There's a lot of people will experiment just to experiment. They'll run A/B tests. They will kind of just whole shot do a website redesign. And I think that those things lack a lot of intention. Could you kind of double click into what you mean by spending with intention on Amazon and maybe what that looks like for a brand?
So glad you asked, Sean. Yes, spending with intention means, one, what's your goal in being here? Certainly you want to generate revenue. Most people do. It's not going to be profitable right away, so you have to think about that. And that's just because you don't have sales history, you don't have sales velocity. You have to spend to start generating the conversions that you need to, again, start to see your top line increase. But the spending with intention comes down to what's your objective? What are you trying to do here? Okay, well, we want to own the term toilet paper. We just want to crush it on that. Okay, that's going to determine what you spend on, how much you spend, and you're going to have to probably be willing to be unprofitable for a good amount of time simply because of the competition. I just have a page in Amazon's brand analytics pulled up, and the 14th most searched term on Amazon right now is toilet paper. That's why I came up with that.
Good luck.
Easter candy is 10, even though it's past. But you have to think about what your goal is, and then targeting or spend comes down to 6 different categories is how we look at it. With there's also a 7th as well too that kind of incorporates all those. You have to spend across those strategies, which to me is consumer behavior. What are people looking up? How are they discovering products? Then getting in front of those people. People who search a keyword like toilet paper, that's an audience. It's not quite a demographic audience, but it's high intent because people are looking for toilet paper. So spending across these 6 different categories of targets and then determining what your end result looks like what's my goal? Okay, I want to be ranked number 1. Maybe on this term. Maybe the sales vary. Maybe you do $1 million. Maybe you do 5 million. Maybe you do 100,000. It's probably not going to do 100,000 if you're wanting to rank in the term toilet paper, but you have to know where you want to go and then determine what success looks like. But spending in these areas, like I talked about ranking high, like that's a category of spend, rank. There's 5 terms with our product that we need to own and be visible on because we want that organic sales position. You have to set those campaigns up correctly and you have to know what to measure. And a lot of people measure simply off of ROAS. Amazon also has a metric called ACoS, advertising cost of sale. It's your spend versus your ad sales as a percentage. So man, I want a really low ACoS. I want a super high ROAS is what someone might say. My question would just be, why?
Right.
And a lot of times, well, that's because that's good. Good is relative in this case. Where are you trying to go? If you just want to have a really profitable business, it's going to be challenging, I think, to do on Amazon from the get-go, but you're probably not going to get the market share that you want, and you're not going to get the visibility you want. That's going to eventually choke out your profitability, even if you're profitable right now.
Within, you've already mentioned a couple of platform and ecosystem specific metrics that people can pay attention to. Just to get really granular, are there any metrics, dashboard views, or anything that you think people commonly misunderstand or misread when it comes to understanding their Amazon performance? Because I think part of what you're talking about with spending intentionally and having this strategy does require a level of competence in the platform and a level of understanding of what these things mean.
Sure.
It's similar to conversion rate optimization. Like, is conversion rate what you should be optimizing against? Maybe not. Maybe there's a better metric. And so I'm curious, within the Amazon space, are there metrics or dashboards that people often misread and or completely misjudge?
Misread, misjudge, and just miss in general, like not looking at it. One of them would be conversion rate. You have an organic conversion rate, like all the traffic, paid or not, that goes to my listing. Maybe organic is not the right word, but just total conversion rate.
Sure.
What is the total conversion rate for this product? That's going to change with seasonality. You may have higher intent in Q4 for consumer electronics. So your conversion rate is naturally going to go up, not necessarily because of something you've done. But also, what does your creative look like? Do you have good creative? Are you running tests of, we'll take, like Cartology, use a consumer survey tool called PickFu. We'll take 3 brands. One of them is the brand we're working with, 2 competitors in the category, ask a bunch of questions, understand where the consumer is at. That will then determine what we want to do from a creative standpoint. And then we'll run an A/B test to see if we're right. Because if we're not right, it doesn't matter. We'll go back to the old content, but we can make good assumptions based on what we know and then test it. That to me is data driven. Just click-through rate was better, conversion rate was better. We're going to go with this one. Cool. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the first piece, is just knowing how conversion rate works, knowing that it's going to fluctuate in season, knowing that your review rating, not necessarily the number of stars that you have, but the review rating, that will change your conversion rate. What are the things you can do to influence conversion rate positively that are within your control? That will determine how successful your top line is. That'll determine how successful your advertising is. So that's one thing that people, I don't know how they're framing it for themselves. Like, yeah, I want a high conversion rate. Sure, you want money to go further. Did you know that in times of seasonality, that will fluctuate? And I don't think a lot of people are thinking or looking at that. They're just thinking up and to the right. And that's not always possible because of the intention of the customer. Something else is that I think people miss, and this is going to start to shift, and really is shifting on Amazon, is tracking something like organic rank. Where is my non-paid position? Certainly being number 1 feels the best. What if you were number 4 and you were still winning? What if you were number 10 and you were still winning? What I mean by that is sales are high. You maybe own a good amount of the sales on that term. And you can certainly influence that via paid. Maybe you show up higher initially paid, not organically, but that will then boost your organic position. But you have to first think about what the purpose of ranking organically is. It's to be seen, typically in a competitive term or a competitive market. That's going to cost you money. And so people will measure organic rank, one, because thinking that's the holy grail. Mm-hmm. But where someone's located will determine where your product shows up organically. You're in Kansas City, I'm in Cincinnati. Something I look up, creatine. This item's located closer in a facility to me, and I can get it overnight from 4 to 8 a.m. That was a real scenario last night. And so I got it between 4 and 8, but I was buying a specific brand, so I was going to buy that brand anyway. But what I buy, if I'm going on a vacation or something like that, I need this thing before I go. That will determine where things are located. So you have to where things are located will determine what you get served. You have to send in enough inventory. But just ranking high organically doesn't really tell me the whole story. If I'm running a rank campaign where I want to rank high on this term, so a single term inside of a campaign with maybe 1, maybe 2 products to test, but really driving velocity on that one term, a lot of people will shut down a campaign because the ROAS is low. Okay, is your objective on a rank campaign to drive ROAS, or is it to drive organic positioning? If it's to drive ROAS, cut it down. It's not really a rank campaign though. You want to drive organic position. So what should you be tracking? Well, track your top of search impression share in that campaign. Am I seeing more of the impressions from an ads perspective that I want? What is my organic position? You would use a third-party tool to do that. Then you take it a step further. And this is where I don't think people go. Where do I show up in top search terms? So you can look up a specific term and Amazon will say, here are the top 3 clicked and converted items. And here's how much click share and conversion share they own. They don't tell you revenue, but click and conversion share. Well, if I'm ranked 7 one week and I own clicks and conversions, do I need to spend more to get up to spot number 1? I don't think so. Then take it a step further and go to Amazon Search Query Performance Report or Search Catalog Performance, and you can say, how much does this item or does my catalog in general own share of voice, and how much of the share purchases do we own? Because again, if my share purchases on a specific term is 25%, and the next week it's 27, and then it's 32, and my rank is at 4, and then maybe it fluctuates to 6, then back up to 5, then down to 8, but I'm still growing and getting where I want to go. Okay, well, I'm achieving my objective. And the brands that I talk with a lot of times, no one's connecting those dots for them. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that is. Some of it is people don't know what they don't know. The other is just sometimes the agency model is broken. I hate to say it, but a lot of people, a lot of clients trying to grow, trying to scale. Again, what's your intention for scaling? Just trying to sell, just like the revenue number, whatever the case might be. You have to be thinking about that intention, and that agency model can break and people don't get the desired results they want because no one's going deep enough with them. It was a really long answer to your question.
No, I love it.
But we did get a little bit more granular, but like that's what we're thinking about when we're thinking about what's the objective of this campaign. And we have to kind of train, we do have to train the people we work with through education and say, here's why we're doing this. And it can work. I can't change people's minds all the time, but I can retrain someone to understand, here's why this is important. Here's why we're going after this. You just have to hope that the sales show it long term. And if you're driving towards the right thing, they will. It also is dependent upon the brand too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, before we jumped on, we were talking kind of about omni-channel and the push to do that, and how a lot of the people that you work with, obviously on Amazon, that's the focus, but they also have a presence. They have a Shopify store. They have other channels. For a brand that's seeing success, they are operating in Shopify. They've been doing it for a good amount of time. They see Amazon as a potential expansion channel for themselves. How would they go about evaluating that opportunity? Is it a similar path to what you're talking about, where if you're already in Amazon, you're looking to grow, there's a way to intentionally do that, and these different search terms to be looking at and evaluating this? Is it similar for somebody who's not yet there, that's just in Shopify or elsewhere, that's saying, could Amazon work for us to help us expand?
If you don't have access on the back end of Amazon, there would be certain things you would not get, like top search terms, search query performance, all this brand analytics. That's stuff you get access to when you've got a registered trademark and you've got an account open on Amazon. But you don't need that to judge what a market is like on Amazon. There's a lot of third-party tools out there. There's a couple that we use, and sometimes we'll cycle through those. At a very basic level, something like Jungle Scout or Helium 10, Chrome extension tools, but also they have something where you can log in. Yeah, if you are selling a niacinamide serum, I don't even know if that's the right thing, but go and look up that keyword. Is there search volume for it? Look for other terms that are similar. Is there a grouping of terms that give you more search volume, that show you demand? Is there seasonality for those? Does it reflect what seasonality might look like on your site? Just at a very, very basic level, you can do that. And sometimes you can get free access, or like you get 5 searches a month. Okay, start there. Then you can start to utilize products, maybe get estimates of those products that are in search results, and they'll estimate, okay, this product sells 1,000 units a month or does $150,000 in revenue a month. Okay, I'm starting to see demand for competitors. Maybe if you're a decently known brand, are people searching for your brand? That's a really easy way to start getting sales. And you can still run ads on that. Just typically there's higher intent on your branded traffic, so you don't need to go crazy. But if you are a competitive brand and it's a competitive market, you may want to defend that space because other people are bidding on those terms. But then there's tools like Smart Scout, which I love because it gives me a category level size. Grocery cookies on Amazon does $220 million a year. So it's a lot of revenue, but there's a lot of subcategories under there too. So what's the total revenue there? Who are the leaders? I probably should have turned my iOS off to stop telling to give me a thumbs up.
You're allowed to thumbs up yourself.
It's encouragement, right? It's just coaching me, like, you're doing great, Michael.
Self-love, man.
You're doing great. But you can use something like Smart Scout to then go in and see who are the top brands in that category and what are they doing revenue-wise? What's their sales velocity? Where are they ranking on Amazon? You can go and look that in the top 100 of any category, or any subcategory. Those are ways that you could start to assess and judge demand. And then you could say, hey, I think the opportunity is there. But I'm going to say, if you can generate $1 million on your site, there's opportunity on Amazon. If you can generate $500,000 on your site, there's opportunity on Amazon. The reason I say that is more consumers are going to Amazon than are going to go to your direct-to-consumer site. Built in, they use Amazon as a search engine, but then are ready to convert. So if you can do anything on your site, there's a much bigger market on Amazon. Then it's just about how you show up there and who you want, like what kind of customer do you want to get access to? And then, what do I offer on my site versus what I offer on Amazon? There's all those other questions to ask.
I want to shift gears a little bit to when people arrive and start doing, you're doing discovery calls with them and you're starting a kind of a new relationship with a brand. I imagine they arrive thinking that they have a certain set of problems. They say, we want more sales. We've been testing creative. We've been testing whatever. Is it often that they are nailing that that's the problem, that they just need more domain knowledge? They need an expert to come in and tweak campaigns? Or do you find that there are some underlying bigger operational or even product issues that need to be revisited? Does the conversation usually stay within the tweaks of campaigns and creative, or do you discover larger things too?
There's certainly buckets of Amazon. To simplify, we look at catalog, creative, ads. There's a strategy, and then how you execute against that. But catalog is my product live? Has Amazon tried to suppress it? Am I sending in enough inventory? I just put those under catalog. It is the very unsexy work that makes the marketing and the revenue happen. You have to do that well still. And there's a lot of potholes or pitfalls that you can fall into that you don't even know about. Amazon will change your category without telling you. Nice. That impacts your rank. That impacts your visibility. Thanks, Amazon. Didn't know, but nice, that's something you have to be thinking about. Creative, is the detail page beautiful? Is it going to convert? Do we know what's going to work the best? And do we know what the consumer is looking for? That's where that consumer research comes into play. Ads is, getting the traffic, whatever. Everyone knows what advertising is, right? So it's those three buckets. I think most people, we'll talk across those, but most people know, I think, what their problem is. Business problem of, one, we're not up on Amazon yet. We want to go live, and we need to do it well. That's a business problem we help you with. The other one is you're underperforming. Either you're growing at a lower rate than you want to, like not in line with the category. Even if you're growing, you're flatline or you're declining. People generally know those problems. What they don't know, one, they're not quantifying the impact on their business. Okay. Well, we want to hit a $5 million target, but we're at $4 million this year. Okay. So you're off by $1 million, 20%. Yeah. It's a pretty big gap. So do they quite feel the pain of that? If they don't feel the pain of that, they're not going to act maybe until it's too late. So they need to understand the impact on their business. Hey, do you realize that this other brand, you own 1% of the market. This other brand owns 10, your biggest competitor. Really? They do? Oh, wow. Okay. It's again, quantifying how that impacts your business. But what they don't get is the root cause. Most people don't know or understand the root cause, and it's really not their fault because they are not channel experts. They are their own brand experts.
Yeah.
And even people who claim to be channel experts don't know because there's a lot to know. I could certainly say I'm an Amazon expert, and I think that's applicable, but there's stuff on the catalog side. You start asking, you go really deep. I'm not going to know. I need to go talk to someone on my catalog team who that's what they do all day, every day, or people who they specialize in that thing. That is how Amazon is its own ecosystem. It really is a jungle, and you have to, there's certain parts of the jungle, certain tribes are going to know better than someone else. Right. Birds are going to know more about the tops of the trees versus maybe the floor, unless they're an ostrich. I don't think those show up in the Amazon, but there's so many sub ecosystems there's a lot to know in there. And when it comes to the root causes, most of the time it's ad related. Certainly their product detail pages could be better. And so I'll point that out. Once we get through discovery, yep, there's an opportunity. We'll move to a recommendation. I'll audit their account, audit listings. Hey, did you know this was like this? Here's what a good listing looks like. Oh, okay. Hey, did you know the category looks like this? No, I didn't, but I knew generally, but I didn't know what sales look like. But when we get into advertising, same problems over and over and over. And I say it's not their fault because they're not looking at it in the right way because they don't have the expertise to do that. And part of the root problem is they don't know Amazon very well.
Yeah.
Like that's a problem that you need. That's a root cause that is impacting your business problem, causing an impact on your business, and it's causing your business to not generate the revenue that you want.
Yeah.
If you don't know
like
all those things, it's like, and then once you get in there, it's like, okay, well, now you're telling me what's wrong. How do I fix it? Yeah, great question. How do you fix that? And there's a way, but then the last piece is just, are people even willing to fix the problem? A lot of times, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing I'm doing. Cool. Let me know how that goes.
Right.
Doesn't typically go well.
People fall in love with their product. They fall in love with the way that they've created something. A lot of entrepreneurs are very proud of what they've built, as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like maybe more than half the battle is just getting people to ask the right questions about the right problems. And there's this saying, and I won't be able to attribute it to somebody, but it's basically that an approximate answer to the right problem is worth a heck of a lot more than a precise answer about the wrong problem. And so it feels like a lot of what you're doing and guiding people through this is saying, do you even, you know what the problems are, but what are the questions that are associated with those problems?
Yes.
Are we asking the right questions about the right problems for where you're at, for where you want to go, back to the intentional growth thing? And I imagine that that's a lot of the battle with teams is let's get you asking better questions about the right problems.
100%. They don't know the right questions asked. Then when I ask that, they either don't know or they kind of have a vague idea. And if I wanted them to get more precise, they wouldn't know how to get that answer. An example question: how much are you spending on discovery spend? I don't know. What is discovery spend? It's auto targeting, broad match keywords, phrase match keywords. Why is it discovery? You're going to get a lot broader matches for terms. Auto targeting is Amazon discovering targets, and that doesn't drive market share. But how do you find that out? How do you find that out? Do you know what your campaign naming structures are? Does Amazon show you that? Not really. Having a tool that can do that, not like me, I'm a tool, but the tool that will analyze your spend and say, here's how much you're spending across these different types. Like, that's where the channel expertise comes into play. And even a lot of people who are on Amazon, like, they know how to set up an ad campaign, they know how to create a listing, they know how to interact with the catalog. But really, to get the results you want, you have to be super precise, and you have to be willing to take risks. A lot of people are not willing to take risks. Like, they want you to think that I'm a genius when it comes to ads. Okay, maybe so, but maybe you can just do the research that you need to determine, all right, here's where I think we align most with certain targets, with certain competitors. Here's how we're going to get in front of those people, and then go and execute against that. A lot of people are just like, I'm going to set up this campaign type. I'm going to throw some keywords in here. I'm going to, whatever. And it's very haphazard. And so you get haphazard results. The crazy part, though, Sean, people can do $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million haphazardly. If they've got a great brand. Maybe if they've got distribution outside of Amazon because people are coming and looking for their product. But you can do a bang up job, but then getting to that next level, you want to go from 5 to 15, you're going to have to do something different.
You mentioned brand. We've talked a lot about data, and obviously that's kind of what I kick things off with, and the focus of the show really is data. But part of the feedback loop is about your brand. Part of the ability to succeed is about your brand. And I'm curious, when it comes to Amazon specifically, the experience of shopping for specific brands, obviously there's a lot of well-known brands that you can find, and then there's lesser known brands. And I'm just curious, when it comes to growth, and maybe it's different for the different stages of growth from 0 to a million, what you just alluded to, even the higher levels. Obviously data, reporting, dashboards, campaigns, ads, all this stuff has a seat at the table. But where does brand sit at this? Where does the creative side sit at this? I know you did mention, like, does your creative work on your page? Does it look beautiful? Where does that fall into the picture? And is that also something that people tend to overlook, or do they spend too much time there and say, I want it to look pretty, but then forget about the other side?
Brand is more important than the data, than anything. I mean, you can get quantifiable data on your business and on your brand, but it's so much more important. That's what people are coming and looking for. That's what people are going to put into their mouths or on their body or bring into their homes. Your brand sucks. Why would somebody want to do that? Now, the caveat is, or there is a caveat of what someone buying the product for. If I'm just buying a Bluetooth keyboard, am I more price conscious? Like, do I care? You can certainly create a brand that's going to target that person more, that consumer more, but all the performance means nothing if you don't have a brand. And the reason I say that is you can generate revenue, but without a brand, there's no recognition of who do I come back and look for. Maybe I, buy a Theragun, and then I'm like, okay, I love this product. I'm going to go back to Amazon and look for Theragun. Or I'm going to go to their direct-to-consumer site. Maybe we've got a special. Or you now see their product sitting on a shelf somewhere. Oh, I know that brand. I'm going to buy that. Even if you've never bought before, you've got familiarity with that brand. You have no brand. And you said, does it look pretty? I think that's an element of brand, but brand is like, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this, just so much deeper. What problem are you solving? And it could just be, hey, I want my desk to be cleaner. That's a problem for me. So my desk is actually pretty clean, so I don't need it to be cleaner. But
other people,
other people, yeah, not me. But how do I solve that problem for that person? And then when someone sees my product, how do they feel? Certainly the colors and the tones and your logo, all that matters. But how do I feel when I see that brand, or what do I think of? Nike. What do you think of when I say Nike?
Yeah, innovative and fast and
just do it.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yep.
What do you think of when I say Liquid Death?
I mean, super creative, aggressive out there.
Yeah,
it's the feeling.
Those brands because they stand out and evoke some kind of emotion. Even if you're like, I hate Liquid Death. It's just water. But you know who they are. You're telling me you would turn down Liquid Death if someone handed it to you? Like, that's how much you hate water? They've just done a great job. I mean, the water is good quality from what I know, but they've just done a great job of building brand. And I think you don't nail brand, you don't get repeat customers, you don't last in the market. You're just selling a product, and they're just products are a dime a dozen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, back to the intentionally scaling and growing thing, if you want more repeat customers, don't sleep on brand. You don't just have to spend money on your email retargeting or whatever it might be to get back repeat customers. The brand can definitely play a role in there. As we look forward to the rest of 2025, things in marketing in the digital space continue to evolve rapidly. I'm sure Amazon, much like other ecosystems, evolves and has changes and rules and algorithms and everything. But what has you most excited as you look forward to the rest of the year? What do you think is the biggest opportunity or something that has you excited in your space?
Can I say I'm excited about tariffs?
I'm
not really. I was just having a flashback to last night. putting my daughter to bed. My wife and daughter and I were talking, and she loves shopping on Shein because it's so cheap. And my wife was like, I've seen stuff go up 300% in real time. My daughter was like, what? Why? And my wife said, it's because of tariffs. And she's like, terrorists? And she was like, no, it's not tariffs. And so we explained a little bit about it, what was going on. And my like just side take is it feels like a lot of posturing. I don't know how long it will last. I feel like we're talking about negotiation tactics. And certainly it impacts people and can be scary. So I don't want to negate that. But there's also seasons too of like how things fluctuate, go up and down. And she was just like, man, why do there have to be tariffs? Like, it's basically what everyone's talking about right now. Like, welcome to, pop culture. But I'm not really excited about that. What I'm most excited about is how we are able to connect these data pieces and tell a storyline. Or there's a through line for the story. So I talked about those rank campaigns. We've been able to, a great partner named Bespoke who's built out a dashboard for us that allows us to tell that story. Now we have to pull in a bunch of different data pieces, but we can say, here's your sales for this item. We're running in a rank campaign. You're organically ranked here. And this rank campaign, top of search impression share is here. Your share of voice is here. Share of purchases is here. Then there's other things like figuring out if they're top clicked and converted on this item. And then Amazon has Amazon Marketing Cloud, which is just continuing to grow and allows us to see the impact that our ads have together because everything is last touch attribution. So you spend on sponsor brands, sponsor display, sponsor products, and DSP. All Amazon's ad types are sponsored television too. And DSP is the first part in your funnel, but a sponsored products campaign is the last clicked on campaign. That's going to get the return on ad spend. Your DSP might be sub 1 ROAS. Again, what are your targets? Sponsored products are 4. What do most people do? Oh, I'm going to shut this down. Is DSP supposed to have a high ROAS? Like, what's your intent of these campaigns? If it's conversion based, yeah, like you want to have a higher ROAS. If you're building some awareness, it's probably going to be lower ROAS because you're getting more views. So what's your KPI? Is it viewable impressions? Is it detail page view clicks? Like, what are you looking at to actually determine if these are going to be successful? And Amazon Marketing Cloud allows us to pull all that together. And then I can say, oh, my DSP ROAS last touch is 1, but first touch is 3. So my multi-touch is, or linear is 2. Okay, well, that tells me a very different story. Then you can start to get more granular. I don't know how granular you really can get or want to get, but you can see the story so much more clearly. And that's exciting because then that means we've got more things to say, great, this is working. Let's double down. This is not working. Shut it off. And then we're not just looking at some of the preliminary things like return on ad spend or organic rank. Like, we're able to tell more of that story. And I think brands are hungry for that because there's a lot more competition out there in general, certainly on Amazon. There are big players out there, brands getting bought up that are going to have lots of money put behind them. You look at the Vital Proteins that have been bought by Nestle. You look at the Poppies that have been bought by Pepsi, Siete. Like, all those brands are going to have a lot more spend put behind them, and they're in competitive categories. Mm-hmm. There is an opportunity to win against those brands if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that the idea of being able to build narratives with data is, that's the core of it all, right? Like, that's how you get more value out of your data, is being able to spot patterns and build narratives and then turn that into confident decision making. And with so many places to look, with so many dashboards and metrics and things flying around, it's so busy that you do have to really, really work that muscle to say, where's the pattern? And ultimately, what is the narrative around that? And how can we use that to our advantage to grow?
And just tell the narrative correctly. Don't skew it just to make yourself look better.
Absolutely. That's definitely a part of the skill there, is being able to correctly identify that and build a narrative out. So I love to hear that that's kind of being echoed inside the Amazon space too, to say we want more of that. We know it's competitive. We can differentiate on brand. We can work on that. But everywhere else, we need to be able to sift through this data in a meaningful way that doesn't require the entire 40 hours of a week of a person's time to just run analysis. It needs to be more efficient and more effective.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for your time. This has been really enjoyable. We could probably go off about Amazon for quite a while. It's what you do. But I want to give you a chance to plug the podcast, Cartology, anything else you want to share. We'll obviously put links in the video description to anything. But yeah, go ahead and tell us how people can connect with you and find you.
I think a standard way to connect with someone is LinkedIn / I'm Michael Maher. I'm pretty sure is what my URL is, but you should see me pop up. It looks like this face. If you can't see who my face is, you're screwed. You can also go to thinkcartology.com. Try to get cartology.com. It's not available. The person is not willing to sell. If you're out there, I'm willing to buy.
Give it
you
up.
have to be willing to sell. But thinkcartology.com, you can find out more about us. That's undergoing a website revamp right now because it was not really serving its purpose of collecting more leads or telling the story about us. So that's why we're redoing it.
Cool.
And the Longer Game podcast, you can find out any place you listen to podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And we just talk about retail. So this is certainly a conversation we might have. And that means physical retail, or retail means physical retail, e-commerce, Amazon, all that stuff. So we have a variety of guests on. It's just a really casual conversation between doers, people who know about those things and are helping brands. So hopefully help brands to be more successful. Sometimes we even have brands on to tell their story and talk about that. So those are all places you can get in touch with me, or just email me, michael@thinkcartology.com.
Yeah, amazing. Michael, thank you so much for your expertise sharing with our audience and for sharing your time. I know you're a busy dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Of course, happy to do it.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Lucky Orange Show. Before we go, if you haven't tried Lucky Orange yet, head over to www.luckyorange.com for a free 7-day trial of our leading conversion rate optimization toolkit. What's in that toolkit? Well, let's start with session recordings and heat maps. With session recordings, you can watch a full playback of an entire visitor journey on your website. Everywhere they click, scroll, move, everything they do in your site, a full playback. So you can see what's getting in the way of conversions and what is getting people over that finish line to convert. With dynamic heat maps, you can see the average visitor behavior on a page. So you can see clicks, moves, and scrolls. You can see how far down the page the average visitor is scrolling. And if something is below that line, that means that more than 50% of visitors are not seeing that. Lucky Orange also offers tools like live chat, announcements, and surveys so that you can communicate with your website visitors in real time. So again, if you have not tried Lucky Orange, or if you're not a user yet, head over to luckyorange.com, check it out, 7-day free trial with no credit card required. If you're a Shopify store owner, head over to the Shopify App Store to download the Lucky Orange app to your store today, as well as BigCommerce, HubSpot, Square, and many more. Check us out, and happy optimizing.